You're listening to Cut Through the Noise, the podcast that helps business leaders increase sales through elevated communications and marketing. And you are very welcome to today's episode. I'm Aisling O'Rourke, the communications coach. And in today's episode, we're talking about something that I see being overlooked far too often in business: training customer-facing staff in how to communicate. Have you asked yourself lately, when was the last time I spoke with my team about communications? Now, when we talk about internal communications, and like we've been doing here in this episode, in this series of Cut Through the Noise, we often jump straight to newsletters, team huddles, leadership announcement, new plans for an organization. And all of that is really important, okay? I'm not taking away from that. But today, I wanted to zoom in to something even more fundamental, something really practical to leave you, the listener, with. And that's what I like to call the frontline effect. You'll have heard me say before that great team will be the best brand ambassador that you can create. So when it comes to your front line, your people who answer the phone, deal with customers, maybe handle complaints, answer emails, or maybe they're on the Instagram account answering private DMs. Let's be honest, these are the team members that often bear the brunt of frustration when something does go wrong. The person at the other end of the chat in the Instagram account, they're the ones that get the abuse or the hassle when there's a complaint coming in that they're struggling to deal with clearly and coherently. We have to remember that these team members are speaking on behalf of your business every single day. How they communicate is how your business is seen by your customers. But this is the thing: in many organizations in 2025, these members of the team are expected to just get on with it. No structured communications coaching, no tone of voice guidelines, no brand script, often no clear direction at all. And the result? Inconsistency, confusion, frustration, ultimately a poor customer experience and a financial burden to your company. Because let's be honest, poor customer experience equals a drop in sales. I mean, how do you want your staff to answer the phone? Have you given them a greeting? I know that sounds incredibly basic, but you'd be surprised how rare it is nowadays to ring a company and have the phone answered correctly. Like a simple one, if you listen to the rest of this podcast episode, take this one away for free. Your team should answer the phone with, "Hello, company name, Aisling speaking, how can I help?" Start the conversation off on a positive note. I'm renovating at the moment and recently had to call a particular shop about a delivery of tiles. I had been given a specific phone number to ring about the delivery if there were any issues. And when I just copied and pasted the number in the text message into my phone and hit dial, when the phone was answered, it was, "Yeah." I genuinely thought I'd hit the wrong number. But it wasn't. It actually was the reception in the delivery department. And even though I had gone in, I'd had an amazing customer experience with the salesperson in the shop, it really put a sour tone on the whole experience and left me really wondering about how much this particular store values my custom. So let me take you back for a second. Picture this. You walk into a shop, the person behind the counter is polite enough, but they're clearly distracted. Let's be honest about it, they probably don't really care while you're there. They answer your question with a bit of a shrug and a half-hearted, "It might be over there, but I don't know if we have it." You walk out without what you wanted, feeling disappointed, a little bit irritated, and definitely unimportant. Now, let's flip that scenario. You walk into the same shop, you're greeted warmly, you ask your question, and even if the answer to that question is, "I'm really sorry, we don't actually have it in stock today," It's delivered clearly and helpfully. And maybe you're given an alternative suggestion or they offer to order it in for you. You leave satisfied. You think, "Do you know, they didn't have what I want, but they're going to have it in for me tomorrow. I'd go back there again." I'd go one step further in saying that based on how you were communicated with, you would be quite happy to recommend the business to friends and family because the overall experience was positive, even if they didn't have what I wanted in stock on that particular day. Same shop, same product, same question, completely different impression. What's the difference? Good communication skills. And that's why this topic matters so much. It's why I care about it so much. It's not about giving staff a script to follow robotically. It's about providing them with the tools and the confidence to represent the business to a high standard, to handle difficult situations calmly, and to speak in a way that aligns with your brand values. Because the truth of the matter is, your customer facing staff are your brand. Let's talk about the hidden cost of poor communication for a moment. What's the cost of getting it wrong? Because it's not just about one off awkward conversations. It all builds up, it mounts up one on top of the other when staff don't know how to communicate clearly. Customers often leave confused or annoyed without spending any money, perhaps. Complaints go unresolved, or worse still, they escalate to the point of shouting matches and become much more serious to deal with. Your online reviews suffer because, let's be honest about it, it's very, very easy to complain about a brand online in 2025. Word of mouth referrals decline, and worse still, your team feels unsupported and morale drops because they've been put in this situation. It's not actually their fault. All of this creates more work for you, more stress, and more cost. One unresolved issue can quickly snowball. It takes up time managing the situation, impacting on your reputation, and loses you loyal customers. I've worked in organizations where customer facing staff were inadvertently contradicting one another simply because no one had clarified the messaging. So one customer will be told yes and another told no in response to the same question, depending on who they spoke to. And that sort of inconsistency erodes trust in a brand very quickly, particularly in a country as small as the Republic of Ireland, where everybody knows everybody. And maybe not to that extent, but you get what I mean. Like at the end of the day, we do praise quietly but complain loudly. And if you're getting that level of inconsistency as a customer, you'd be right to be annoyed. So if you're trying to build loyalty and attract repeat business or grow through referrals, it is a fundamental issue that you have to address. It is costing you money at the end of the day, and that puts everybody's job at risk. So, whose responsibility is it anyway? I mean, isn't good communication just good manners and a bit of common sense? I get asked this a lot. Whose job is it exactly? Whose responsibility is it? The answer, honestly, is it's everyone's. Leadership needs to set the tone. Management needs to make training a priority, and HR and comms teams need to work together on it. Frontline staff need to be listened to because they're the ones dealing with real people in real time every day. Listen to the issues that they are raising and spot the consistencies in the problem and create a solution that will help everybody. What doesn't work is assuming that your team are good communicators or assuming that they'll know how to answer a phone, particularly if they are from a younger generation that don't really make phone calls in their day-to-day lives or have to deal with formal emails and write formal replies to an Instagram comment, for example, particularly if they're from a generation where the shorthand is common parlance. If that's not aligned with your brand and your brand values, then it's something that you need to make sure everybody knows. The end of the day, your team is not psychic. So you cannot assume that your team are good communicators, or worse still, leaving them to rely on outdated scripts or word of mouth from their peers. I mean, if you're telling your staff that they have to insist on calling it Twitter when Twitter died a few years ago and it's now X, it sounds ridiculous. As much as X is a terrible name for a brand, in my humble opinion. But you get where I'm going with on that one. Take a moment, take time to prioritize communications. Sit down and listen to your team on calls with customers. Organize communications coaching for your staff. Because otherwise, you're just leaving it up to chance. We need to normalize the idea that communication is a core competency, not a soft skill. It's just as important as technical training. And in fact, in customer facing roles, I would argue it's the most important competency. Let me give you some examples. No names, of course. Many years ago, I worked in a financial institution taking customer calls because, let's be honest, the team knew I was a good talker. Okay. And they didn't want to deal with the customer calls. So I got put into the chair and given the phone and said, off you go. It was a summer job in college and it was a great training ground. You see, immediately on day one, I was trained in how to greet customers, how to deal with agitated customers or those who were clearly under pressure, so that when the time came to take calls unsupervised, I was ready. I had the confidence to listen and to help the customer get their questions answered. And I also knew that it was okay to ask the customer to wait while I found the answer for them, because the priority was to keep the customer happy and to help them as best that I could. And it was okay to take my time doing it. This practice of training staff in communications in many sectors, unfortunately, has disappeared for a variety of reasons. But the problem with that is it's leading to a rise in complaints and a huge financial loss. A small business that I worked with had a lovely team, friendly, hardworking. They were seriously committed to doing a good job, but they kept on getting complaints about their customer service. When I was brought in, though, management were baffled. They couldn't understand what was going on because they knew the team was great. So we did a quick audit, listened in to a few call recordings, did some mystery shopping. And what we found was this: staff weren't actually being rude, they were being unclear. They were using vague language. They were hesitating. They were making promises that they couldn't keep, not because they didn't care, but because they hadn't been taught how to communicate within the brand's voice or how to handle difficult conversations. We brought in some simple training focused on clarity, tone, managing expectations, and suddenly complaints dropped. Reviews improved, and best of all, the staff felt more confident in themselves, so morale rose. At the end of the day, clarity reduces conflict. One of the most important things you can do for your team is provide them with clarity. Clarity in what the company stands for, clarity in what they're empowered to say or do, and clarity in how to handle those tricky moments when things go wrong. Because they will go wrong, because that's life and no business is perfect. But remember how your team responds in those moments. That's what customers remember. Do you remember taking your driving test and in the preparation beforehand, your instructor would have said something along the lines of, your driving not being graded, it's how you respond to other drivers that counts. It's the same here when it comes to communications. Clear internal communications isn't about policies and memos solely. It's about how those messages are translated at the front line. It's what gets said at the counter, in the chat box, or over the phone. Most importantly, it's what's said when a customer is frustrated, and just wants a straight answer. It's especially important when a complaint is being made. Helping your staff learn how to deal with complaints in a calm, empathetic, and confident manner will prevent the situation escalating. Let's go back to my job as a college student in a financial institution. There's one caller I had to deal with at the time that stuck in my mind ever since. What she was actually asking me to do for her was actually against the law, but I'm not going to go into those details. Okay. But she got more and more frustrated when I politely, I thought, tried to say it wasn't a possibility. We could try an alternative way of dealing with the situation and get the same result, but it couldn't be done in the way she wanted it to be done. And then she started cursing and threatening to have me fired. I really didn't know what to do. So I, calmly as I could, asked her to wait for a moment while I put her on hold, because luckily enough, my line manager happened to be sitting next to me on that particular afternoon. So I explained the situation to him and sought his advice. He calmly responded to the situation by giving me a script that I still use to this day, on rare occasions, thankfully. Madam, if you continue to use that kind of language, I will be forced to terminate this call. He told me to resume the conversation, but this time to put her on speaker so he could listen in. When she cursed, I did as I was told. I gave her a warning. And then, when she cursed again, he leaned over and hung up on her. It's an extreme example, but in that moment of training, he gave me a clear script and the confidence that if I needed to use this script, that he, as my manager, would back my decision. Now, he actually called that person back the following day to outline why his staff would not be spoken to in that kind of manner, and that if this particular person wanted to continue to do so, they could take their custom elsewhere, which again gave me even more confidence in my abilities despite my young age. Funnily enough, while I have had to use the script once or twice since, I don't think I've actually had to hang up on anybody because it has the desired effect of just shocking a silence and a pause in the situation, which then ultimately calms the situation. Or at least that's my experience. So, what does good communications training actually look like? It's practical. Real scenarios, not just theory, role play, live examples, and shadowing. It's consistent. It doesn't happen once at induction. It's topped up regularly, especially when the business or services evolve. Perhaps your brand values have changed or evolved over time. All of this requires a fresh look at your communication skills and strategy within your team. It's collaborative. Good communication goes both ways. Your staff should feel safe to give feedback and ask questions and share what they're hearing from customers without repercussions. And it's values driven. What tone of voice do you want associated with your brand? Is it warm and welcoming or expert and efficient? Staff need to know how to reflect that tone in everything that they say and do, because they need to be able to represent the company with confidence. So you might be asking, why am I talking about this? Why have I focused this series of the podcast on internal communications in particular? It's because I'm seeing a serious decline in standards on a very broad and worrying level. And in 2025, the stakes have never been higher. We live in a world of instant feedback. Customer can go from having a minor annoyance or irritation to a viral post in minutes. One poor interaction can undo years of careful work, months of marketing strategy. And in an age of automation and AI, the human touch stands out now more than ever. When other brands are automating absolutely everything and sounding, well, very much the same, good communications, unique communications stands out from the crowd. It helps to cut through the noise online and in real life, and it gives the customer a more personal and positive touch. That means it's seriously important to invest in your team, not just in their technical abilities, but in their communication skills as well. These conversations are not side tasks, they're the customer journey. And a good customer journey means a growth in your business. So, if you're listening to this and thinking, what can I do to make this better for us as a brand? Here are 3 actions that you can take straight away. Audit your customer experience. Walk through it yourself. Do some secret shopping of your own company. Is your team confident in what they're saying? Is the tone right? Are customers getting a consistent message? Create simple communications guideline. Provide your team with a cheat sheet, particularly those that are on the front line, that are dealing with customers in person, day in, day out. A tone of voice guide, example phrases, all of this will help your team do a better job. It doesn't need to be a novel. Give them something with bullet points that's got structure and support built into it. And yes, it is time to invest in communications coaching, whether it's bringing in someone like me, and there are others like me, or running regular workshops in-house. Carve out time for your staff to build on their communications toolkit. It'll pay for itself in a reduction in complaints, better reviews, and happier, more productive staff. So there are 3 things that I want you to remember from today's episode. Number 1, your customer-facing staff are your brand. If they're unclear, inconsistent, or unsupported, it reflects directly on you. Communication is a skill. It can be learned. It is not a personality trait. Anyone can improve with the right training and coaching. Leaving it to chance is not an option. 3, investing in internal communications saves money. Less confusion, less conflict, more loyalty. It's not just the right thing to do, it's good business. That's it for today's episode of Cut Through the Noise. If you found it useful, I'd love it if you shared with someone in your team or even in your senior leadership, because this isn't just a frontline issue, it's an organizational one. And just for safety's sake, just to repeat it one more time, communication is a core competency and not a soft skill. If you're ready to take a closer look at how you and your team are communicating, I'd love to help. Drop me a line at hello@thecommunicationscoach.ie and I'd be delighted to talk to you today. And remember, while content may well be king, clarity is key. You want to stand out from the crowd and cut through the noise. Have a great week.